Welcome to our Decoding Your Resume Text Suggestions session. Thank you to everyone for joining this workshop. We hope everyone's doing okay at home. We're really grateful to be part of this community. Thank you, Battlesnake, for having us and giving us a reason to shower today. So my name is Sandra. I'm an RBC recruiter. I have about 14 years of experience recruiting in the technical sector. I'm supporting hiring efforts across our technology and operations area, specifically for developers. So I'm also happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn for further conversations.
Hi, I'm Riyan. I'm a senior technical recruiter with RBC. I've been with the bank for about 3 years and in the recruitment business for about 8 years in total, recruiting across continents in Asia, in Europe, in North America. And I'd be happy to connect with any of you guys that would like to connect on LinkedIn.
So we know writing a resume can be overwhelming. There's a lot of mixed messaging out there about how long resumes should be. Should I have different versions of my resume? How much detail should I provide? Should I include a picture, personal information, hobbies? So we want to share just a few easy tips to remember when you are working on your resume for the first time or recreating your resume. Not to deter anyone from applying to positions, but a lot of large organizations at times can get upwards of maybe 400 applications for a single job posting. We do not use an ATS system that selects profiles for us, but we have a team of technical recruiters and hands-on hiring managers who review a large portion of these profiles. So we want to share what we think would help create a very eye-catching resume with our top tech suggestions. So that's the introduction, the evidence, customizing, and highlighting. So the introduction, making sure it's easy to read. Your first glance impression is important. The easiest resume, I guess, to read would be the reverse chronological format. So under work experience heading, list your experience from current to last position, and then include the dates and when you were employed. So the company would be on the left of the page, and the dates would be to the right of the page. This is a really clear format and easily tells the reader what you've done in order. At large, your resume should include a couple of things like contact information, which we'll go into more detail. Professional summary will add some more detail, your technical skills and your soft skills, your professional experience, and then education, and maybe some extracurricular activities. We've noticed that a lot, and it does go a long way. And at the top of the resume, the summary is really important. What type of developer are you, and how can you describe yourself? This would typically be about 4 or 5 lines, just a short summary, some of your top technical skills, a plan of action. This is like what you've done in the past and as it relates to the role that you're applying to, and then some of your soft skills. Tell us about what your drive or your passion for technology is. In this summary too, the reader would typically like to see a few things like the years of experience that you have. Are you articulating if you're a front-end developer, back-end developer, or a full-stack developer? Basically just a brief snapshot, and then maybe 1 or 2 major accomplishments that you've had in the past. Like, did you reduce costs as a result of a project? Or have you received an Employee of the Year award? After the summary, another header under that could easily describe your technical skills. I've seen a few creative ways that people have shared their list of technical skills, like using graphics, etc., which is also great. But again, the easiest way to digest this information would be to highlight and break down your experience. So for example, if you were to highlight in bold your deployment tools and then list Docker, Jenkins, and then highlight in bold database and then perhaps SQL, or the web technologies, and then list Angular, HTML5, etc. The key is to make the reader's job easy, and this is done by how effectively you can show and tell your experience. And then I think especially within working in an agile environment, all developers have a component of business and project management requirements. So articulating your experience and how you're doing that on your resume will let the reader know how effectively you can communicate with the business within a business setting, like dealing with stakeholders. Our second tip is evidence.
Awesome. So I'll take it over from here, from Sandra. Thank you so much, Sandra, for walking us through. The second tip is evidence. So, we're going to quickly walk through a sample of an experience that has been shared, which myself and Sandra really liked. So as you can see on your screen, this is a full stack software engineer experience that the person has shared. They've broken it down clearly into the software development experience along with the DevOps experience, right? So what they're focusing on is not just the development aspect of it, but they're also focused more on the delivery and the continuous integration that they're looking at. Very precisely broken it down into the programming languages that they have used. Of course, this is very critical. The reason being, if we're looking for a Java developer, if you're looking for a Python developer, if you're looking for a mobile developer, I know a lot of these technologies do interact with each other, but at the end of the day, what the hiring manager wants to know is what is your key skill set, right? Are you strong particularly in Java? Are you stronger particularly in Python? Are you strong particularly in Swift as a programming language? So that is key for us to know, particularly recruiters as well as hiring managers. The technology and framework that you have used also needs to be clearly outlined in each experience if you possibly can. Also very important that you include that as part of the summary that Sandra just mentioned. Also, key aspect to look at this experience is they mentioned 2 or 3 key points, right? So it clearly highlights what sort of project the person has worked on, what are the tools that they have used, how is it that they've successfully delivered the project, and what is the impact that it has had on the client, right? So it has to be clear and concise. Anywhere from 4 to 6 points is more than enough. And you always need to think about putting yourself more in the hiring manager's mindset rather than it being more as you trying to present something. You always have to think of it from a hiring manager's mindset where you are reading 10 to 15 to 20 to probably 100 resumes. And out of that, which is the one that you would want to select. So you always have to think about putting yourself above all the other resumes in the pile, right? So that is one key aspect of it. It's been broken down into be specific and quantitative as we discussed. So if you made, sort of cost savings for the business, if you accomplished sort of delivery within a 2-month or a 3-month period, just as an example, please make sure that you quantify all these achievements. Project outcome and accomplishment. So you want to mention, what was your accomplishment as part of this project. A key aspect of it is being not just an individual player, but also working as part of the team. So you want to mention that this was your role as part of the team and what was the comprehensive or cumulative outcome of it, right? And bucket it into subgroups. So as we've just mentioned, software development, DevOps, programming languages, technology, and frameworks. So it's been clearly broken down, making it easy for everybody to read and understand and be able to decide on your resume as a select or a reject immediately. And moving on to the next one is to customize. And Sandra's going to take it over from here.
So we put keywords on this, but keep in mind this is not the only deciding factor on how a resume is selected, but adding the keywords helps the reader easily identify your skills and how they are relevant to the role. If the job description you're applying to asks for Angular, for example, and you obviously have Angular experience since you're applying to that role, mention Angular in the summary, then mention Angular in the technical skills section, and however many times as needed in the work experience section. Analyze and make sure the job you are applying to is applicable to your experience, and tailor your resume to your skills, and tailor your skills to match some of the key terms that are on that job description. A lot of the applicants that we see either mention their responsibilities or their achievements, but the resumes that mention both of those things seem to be the most intriguing. So as Riyan mentioned regarding sharing a quantifiable impact of your achievements, this can easily paint a picture for the reader. So if you mention some of your specific responsibilities and the result, we can understand what you're doing. So even if you're a new graduate, with not much working experience, use your school assignments as your work experience and treat the assignment as the project. So for example, under your work experience heading, if you list the name of the assignment or the project as a subheading, followed by a strong bullet, something that I found was I worked in a team of 5 junior developers and effectively created a project from scratch with 100% on-time delivery and achieving a total score of 92% above grade average. So numbers help, and this is a lot of information that we're getting, and it's just from one bullet point. So next is highlight, and not necessarily like bolding and highlighting, but describe your technical skills. The bolding and bucketing and subheadings of your work experience section will help make sure your resume is easy to read, but also giving those examples and highlighting the achievements is important. So if someone were to just glaze over your resume, where do you want their eyes to land? So highlighting your project experience, your examples, and your specific participation to those projects. Of course, your education, that's important, but not just your degree, but any types of certifications or any type of continuing education, links to your portfolios or your GitHub accounts. We do have a lot of profiles that we see with adding in their extra publications or any type of side projects. We notice a lot of data engineers or data scientists that we employ have some side projects that they work on. So adding links in those project descriptions in your resume also helps to see, or the reader to see your passion in the technology field. So those are our tech resume tips: the intro, evidence, customize, and highlighting.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Sandra. That was quite a detailed synopsis of everything that we've covered so far. So digital at RBC, I'm going to quickly walk you through what digital at RBC is all about. So technology within RBC is divided into technology and digital. I know they're quite synonymous with each other, but we've broken it down into 2 aspects. What digital at RBC basically does is more to do with all your front-end applications. So if you're using the RBC mobile banking application on your iOS or Android, that is something which is made by digital. Again, if, for example, you go to the branch and they're pulling out your details from the system, that's an application, again, that's developed by digital. What technology ideally does is more on the back-end aspect of things, so on running all these applications more on the cloud infrastructure. That is something which is covered by the larger technology sort of subsector umbrella of RBC. So that's how we're broken down as technology and digital within the bank. A couple of myths and facts that probably you must have heard in the market regarding resumes is something I'd clearly like to cover today. So it's commonly said that resumes are shortlisted only on the basis of keywords. I've probably heard that from a lot of folks. But that is not true, especially at RBC. Any and every application that we do receive is thoroughly looked at in terms of the technical skills, in terms of the soft skills, in terms of their fitment for the specific role, and only is it then shortlisted. So it is not shortlisted only on the basis of keywords, because we do understand that a lot of folks do have challenges in being able to make the resume based on the requirements. So we try and find out more details if there is any missing information. Another myth actually is the applicant tracking system will reject your resume automatically. I can speak for RBC. I cannot speak for other organizations, but absolutely we do not. This applicant tracking system does not reject any resume just on the basis of the keywords, or does not get rejected automatically. It is reviewed. Each and every resume is reviewed by the recruiter, by the hiring manager in the light of the requirements. And if it is, something that does meet or match, we accordingly forward your candidature as part of the next steps. Another one is that the resume needs to be one page only. This is, of course, debatable. Folks can say, it needs to be one page only because, what more than a one page resume do you need to convey? But that's not true. A lot of the times, if you have some projects that have been absolutely fantastic, you've had some great achievements, you want to mention some of your GitHub projects, side projects that you've done. Of course, your resume is going to go more than one page, and that's perfectly fine. For each profile, what we're looking at is specific to the job. I may probably not need to know about other aspects that are not relevant for this specific job. So it makes sense for you to, sort of cut it down to make it more concise and precise. But it can definitely be more than one page, but with relevant information only. Another last one is it's all about the technical skills. So this is again, something which RBC focuses a lot on, is not just the technical skills, but also the soft skills. Because even if you may have, you're the best developer out there, but if you can't work as part of a team, or if you don't understand the deliverables that need to be delivered as part of the project, it's very challenging for you to be able to work as part of a team and get things done, right? So just as much as your technical skills are important, it's very important that you're able to communicate your technological language into layman terms. It's very important that you're able to work as part of a team. It's very important that you understand clear instructions and are able to mentor folks on the team, right? So it's not just about yourself. It's more about being able to work along with the team and the essential soft skills. Another aspect, so to quickly highlight, enable for us to be able to help you with preparing your resumes, preparing for interviews. RBC Ventures has developed an application. It is called RBC Prepped. Prepped, you can look at the website there. It's www.fullyprepped.ca. What it helps you with is it gives you guidelines around preparing your resume. It gives you guidelines around preparing for your elevator pitch. So elevator pitch is something where, if you go in for an interview, the hiring manager is going to ask you, tell me something about yourself. So that's a very common question that we come across. It just needs to take as much time as it would take for you to come down an elevator from the top floor to the bottom floor of the building. Again, the question is going to be how tall the building needs to be. But you're looking at it anywhere about a minute is a best or suitable time for you to be able to tell them more about your profile and about yourself, right? So fully prepped, again, that's something that you can leverage to understand about your interview requirements, about the resume, and being able to present for the job. A couple of jobs that we hire for in RBC Digital. We have mobile developers, Android and iOS. We have full stack developers, of course, we're looking at, and the full stack sort of list of tech stack can vary anywhere from Java, JavaScript, Node.js, React.js, Angular. So there are lots of technology stacks that RBC uses, depending on which team you're going to be working for. Designers, we need a lot of designers, of course, for the applications that you see front end when you log on to the RBC website. Product owners, of course, RBC has a lot of internal products that probably you may not be able to see externally, but the bank definitely leverages to give you the best client experience, right? SREs, which is site reliability engineers, again, across different teams for cloud, for application development, across all different teams, we do have a number of site reliability engineering positions and many other roles, right? So you can definitely log on to rbccareers.com and check out the open positions, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and I'd be happy to help. Okay.
Yeah, we're open to any questions too. If anyone has any questions or comments.
So, Sandra, Riyan, we got one question, and it's I'm a student looking for my first internship. I have no experience in my field. What should I be putting on my resume to stand out?
Yeah, so I think what a lot of managers typically look for is what we mentioned with the GitHub account. I think GitHub also allows you to work on a couple projects if you took on a couple of different options for some freelance work. And even as I mentioned too before, sharing more detail about your education and publications, if you do have, if none, that's fine. But being more specific about your project experience and treating it like a business and really breaking down those projects. So I think there is a lot of added value that you can look into, really digging deeper. And then whatever you do on the side too, like I mentioned too, we have a lot of people within the team that do work on their own little side hustles, and adding that those types of work experiences is important. If no work experience at all, just tell us about yourself. What have you done? What are you interested in doing? And be more specific as possible. Riyan, would you agree? Is there anything else to add?
Absolutely. And I feel in the field of technology, there are a lot of events that are happening. You can participate in a lot of developer conferences, like, Battlesnake is one of them. If you're here, the fact that you participated in it, I think it's relevant for you to mention that in your resume.
Were there any other questions, Noah?
Just one other one. Just for me personally, is how do you a lot of the times I'm asked, I come from a recruiting background as well, it's just like, how do people get feedback on their resumes from organizations like RBC and organizations that they're applying for? It's just like, how would you give feedback to a candidate who's asking for it on the resume, if you don't mind?
Mm-hmm.
Sandra, you want to start with it?
Yeah, I would love if people had asked. I don't give out feedback if it's not asked for. If people ask for feedback, I'm very willing to give it. And I do think it's important, and maybe something that we should have highlighted as well. Getting extra eyes on your resume is very important. Mm-hmm. It is tricky to write, and especially as a writer for the first time. So getting as much feedback on it as possible is great. Specific feedback, again, just about the layout, and if we are getting a lot of applications and we're not able to spend a ton of time reading each one, what is eye-catching and really what jumps out? But I know I would be very willing to share more feedback on providing some specific examples. Riyan, have you touched on this before?
Yeah. So what I typically do is, a lot of the times, if the candidate's particularly not selected, that's what I usually tend to share a feedback. The fact that they've not been selected and they've come so far in terms of this sort of the interview process, there is something about the resume that it's been shortlisted so far. So there's no problem with the resume. Probably in part of the selection process is where they must have gone wrong. But because most of the resumes that are not a fit get shortlisted or get weeded out early in the process, we do share sort of feedback only with the ones that do ask us, because 400 applications per job, 30 jobs at any given time, that's a lot of applications, right? So we give on a need to know basis, and if there is somebody who would like to know feedback, we're more than happy and willing to share feedback. As just as we'd been candidates at one time in the process, we'd like to know some feedback too. So similarly, we give it back.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for that. And so we've got another question that just came in. This one's, I'm about to graduate with a CS degree. I went into it since I'm good at math and problem solving, but the passion isn't there, and I wouldn't code in my free time. Am I in the wrong field, or is coding at work a lot different than school?
Sandra,
so more, interested in mathematics?
So I think the question is asking that they went into computer science because they really like math and problem solving, but they're not super passionate about coding at school, and they're wondering, is it very different coding sort of in the professional field than it is at school? And what have you seen at RBC or other organizations that you've been a part of?
I would even suggest it maybe looking into data science a little bit more. If you do like that space, you don't have to be hands-on coding. You can work directly with coders, but maybe focusing on manipulating data, and that's more focused on mathematics, but not necessarily hands-on like core coding specifically. Also adds in some business components. I have noticed though, and like we both touched on briefly, all of our developer roles, it's not heads down development. I think within a lot of organizations, there's so many more components to a developer that we look for as far as that project management. And as I mentioned, communicating with stakeholders. There's so many different elements. I think though, the passion for coding definitely needs to be there if you're looking within the developer space. But I mean, that's for a full stack developer if you're interested in maybe just front end or back end. But I would suggest maybe also looking into the data science space. Riyan, anything to add?
Yeah, and I think just to answer the question more towards, is it going to be different from what you do in school? I feel the real world is against, just like anything that you've done in school so far, and when you apply it in practical life, it's a bit different. It all depends on where does your interest lie. If you do really like solving problems, I think there are plenty of problems all around the world that we can look at, which can, of course, be solved by coding challenges, right? For example, a 17-year-old just developed a website that is addressing all questions around statistics for COVID-19, which I think is a brilliant example. And he probably didn't study that he needs to apply that in real life, but he did apply that and he's doing well for himself. So it depends on what sort of problem you're looking to solve and how interesting is it. I believe the interest lies more towards what kind of project or development you're working on, rather than just trying to find the problems within the code all the time, right? So it's looking at it more as a holistic perspective is what I'd say.
That's great. Yeah. And that was sort of our last question that we had in. And there's just other people sort of chiming in on the chat as well of trying different programming languages and technologies. And I will also sort of echo what Sandra and Riyan both said of like, just because you have a CS degree doesn't mean you have to be a software developer. You can go into product management. You can even product ownership. You could pivot over to design. You can do lots of different stuff. And it doesn't just mean that you have to be a coder. You can go to DevOps, like you were saying, data science. There's lots of different fields you can do with a CS degree.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's everything that we had, and I just want to say thanks again to Sandra and Riyan for joining us today. Really love the workshop. I think there's a lot of great information in there. I think a lot of our audience got a lot of great tips and tricks on how to sort of stand out a little bit more for their next job search. Thanks again, Sandra and Riyan.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.